Stand in a parking garage on a weekend evening and watch what people notice first. Nobody comments on the brokerage balance you cannot see. Nobody photographs the index fund sitting quietly in an account you never mention at dinner. They notice the car, the watch, the shoes, the reservation that took 3 weeks to secure. Wealth that is stored stays invisible. Wealth that is displayed becomes the story. And that split creates a trap most earners walk into without ever naming it. The purchases that earn applause are often the same purchases that shrink the pool of capital your future self needed most. So the real question is not whether you can afford the payment. It is whether you are funding a life that looks rich or a balance sheet that can survive the next decade. Looking rich and building wealth are not opposites in every moment. Sometimes they overlap. A durable home can be both shelter and an asset. Education can raise earning power. A reliable vehicle can protect income. The problem is not spending itself. The problem is that social life rewards one kind of spending far more loudly than the other. Upgrades get noticed. Contributions do not. Renovations get photographed. Automatic transfers do not. That asymmetry matters because human motivation follows feedback. When the reward system points toward display starts to feel like progress even when the net worth line is barely moving. For generations, communities have used visible consumption as a shortcut for status. Before portfolios were common, people inferred success from what they could see. Clothing, furnishings, the size of a gathering, the quality of hospitality. That signaling logic made sense in a world where balance sheets were private, and gossip was the ranking system. The mechanism still runs in modern life, only the props changed. Instead of carriages and silver, we have lease payments, brand labels, and restaurant tabs that travel through group chats. The historical pattern is stable. Visible consumption spreads because it is easy to verify. Stored wealth spreads more slowly because it is easy to hide and socially awkward to discuss. Here is how the mechanism works in practice. Every dollar can do one of 2 jobs at a given moment. It can become an asset that may produce income, appreciate, or reduce future costs, or it can become consumption that delivers immediate experience and social signal before it disappears. Display spending is consumption with a marketing department. It tells strangers you're winning before the long-term math has confirmed anything. Stored wealth is the opposite trade. It accepts short-term invisibility in exchange for optionality later. Optionality means you can absorb a job change, fund a business experiment, buy an undervalued asset when others are forced to sell, or simply stop working because your assets work instead of you. The catch is that optionality requires capital to remain capital. The moment it becomes a depreciating object or a recurring lifestyle bill, the option set narrows. The escalation arrives through small repeats, not one dramatic mistake. Imagine someone whose income rises steadily over several years. Each raise creates a natural moment to increase status spending because peers expect lifestyle to track title. The nicer apartment gets justified as a reward. The upgraded wardrobe gets justified as professional necessity. The membership gets justified as networking. None of these choices is automatically wrong, but each one raises the baseline cost of ordinary life. That baseline is the hidden tax on wealth building. Once your monthly overhead reflects a display-rich life, cutting back feels like failure even when it would be strategic. Meanwhile, the stored wealth side of the ledger may still be growing, but from a smaller base because so much cash flow is captured by recurring signals. The person looks like they are accelerating. The balance sheet often says they are treading water with better furniture. The contrarian beat is this: looking rich can be rational in the short run. Signaling matters in careers, dating, client relationships, and negotiations. A polished appearance can open doors. The trade-off is that signaling has a carrying cost, and that cost compounds in reverse. Every recurring payment tied to appearance is a claim on future income. Every depreciating display asset is money that will not be available when an opportunity appears. That is why the wealth gap between 2 people with similar incomes can widen without any scandal or secret inheritance. One person keeps redirecting raises into visible upgrades. The other keeps redirecting raises into assets that are boring to discuss at parties. Over a decade, the difference is not brilliance. It is what each person treated as progress. Consider a mid-career professional who earns well and lives accordingly. The car is new enough to signal reliability. The home shows taste. The vacations are documented. Friends assume this person is building serious wealth because the surface markers are loud. Now imagine a second professional with the same income who drives something older, spends less on visible upgrades, and routes surplus cash into retirement accounts, a rental property down payment fund, and a taxable brokerage account with automatic contributions. At a dinner table, the first person looks like the winner. On a net worth statement, the second person is often pulling away. Not because the second person is morally superior, but because one ledger is optimized for applause and the other is optimized for accumulation. The first person may still invest, but from whatever is left after lifestyle inflation. The second person invests first and lets lifestyle expand only from what remains. That ordering decision is one of the least discussed wealth mechanics in personal finance. So the practical takeaway is to separate the applause budget from the compounding budget before the next raise arrives. Ask what part of spending exists to be seen and what part exists to be kept. Display spending is not forbidden. It is simply expensive in a currency most people do not track. Future flexibility. Stored wealth feels unrewarding because society built the scoreboard wrong, not because it is less real. If you want the outward life and the inward balance sheet to tell the same story eventually, you need a rule that protects capital from social momentum. Pay yourself into assets first. Let visible upgrades trail earned optionality, not lead it. The goal is not to look poor. The goal is to stop treating admiration as evidence that the invisible ledger is growing. Go back to that parking garage on a weekend evening. The cars still tell a story. The watches still tell a story. Strangers still infer success from what they can verify in seconds. None of that disappears. But you now have a sharper question to carry into every major purchase. Am I buying something that will be admired once and billed repeatedly, or am I buying a wider set of choices for a future I cannot see yet? Looking rich is fast. Building wealth is quiet. The people who confuse the two are not foolish. They are responding to a world that cheers the visible ledger and ignores the one that actually compounds. Once you see both books, you can decide which one deserves the next dollar.